Okay, hey guys. So today we're looking at homeostasis in relation to blood sugar levels. So remember, homeostasis means keeping the body's, the various things about the body at a relatively stable, steady state. So glucose is obviously very important. You need it for aerobic respiration and various other things in your body. But if levels do get too high, that can cause damage to your blood vessels. So we don't want blood sugar levels to get too high. And too low levels can cause weakness and even lead to a coma. So blood sugar really has to be controlled very carefully. Okay, a normal range like 3.0 to 7.7 moles. You don't have to worry about what those units mean. It's just what the normal range is. And when we're studying homeostasis of blood sugar, it's really important to talk about the pancreas. I tried to draw one there, but it sort of failed halfway through, so I gave up. But you can look in your textbook or just Google an image online for what a pancreas looks like. And the pancreas produces two really important hormones for controlling blood sugar, and those are insulin and glucagon. Okay? And the glucagon is formed from the alpha cells in the pancreas, and that's involved in increasing blood sugar levels. And the insulin is secreted from beta cells. Okay, so the pancreas has alpha and beta cells. Alpha cells produce glucagon, which increases blood sugar levels when they're too low, and beta cells secrete insulin, which lowers blood sugar levels when they're too high. So, like I said, insulin lowers blood sugar levels when they're too high, and it does that by causing cells to uptake glucose from the blood. So it gets cells to take in glucose from the blood, which lowers the amount in the blood. They convert glucose to a compound called glycogen. Don't get that confused with glucagon. Glucagon is the hormone, which we'll look at in a second. Glycogen is a storage compound. It basically stores glucose in our body. So insulin can convert glucose into glycogen. And it prevents glycogen being converted back into glucose. So those are three ways that insulin lowers the blood sugar levels. Glucagon increases blood sugar levels by converting glycogen to glucose. It can convert fats to glucose, and it inhibits the production of insulin. So glucagon will do those things to increase the blood sugar level. So I've got a negative feedback diagram here for blood sugar levels. So whether the blood sugar level rises or falls, the pancreas detects that change. Let's go to the lower level for when it falls. So when the blood sugar has fallen, glucagon gets released, and that acts in those various ways. So it might convert glycogen into glucose, it might convert fats to glucose, etc., etc. The result of that is the blood sugar rises to normal levels. When the blood sugar level rises, again, the pancreas detects that change, the insulin is released, and it acts in various ways to reduce blood sugar levels, like by making the body cells take up glucose or converting the glucose into glycogen. And as a result, blood sugar levels return to their normal way. So both of these are another example of negative feedback. So remember, negative feedback is when the body detects a change and then acts to return that change to normal, okay? And like I said, it's not always about reducing the change, so don't think of it as negative like that. It's negative in that it returns it to normal. So a change happens and it gets cancelled out. Whether the change is going up from the normal or down from the normal, it cancels it out, and we call it negative feedback, just like for temperature, okay? Finally, we're just going to look at an example of when blood sugar levels are harder to be controlled, and that's with the disease diabetes. So people who suffer from diabetes are unable to control their blood sugar level in the regular way, and that can lead to some quite severe health impacts over time. So type 1 diabetes is the type of diabetes that normally develops during childhood. We're not actually sure why it develops. There are a few different theories about it. Some think it could be linked to some viruses that affect the pancreas. Some people think it could be linked to genetic factors. It's probably a mixture of the two. There's still some research going on that. You work that out, you could win yourself a Nobel Prize, but we're not fully sure right now. But anyway, It develops during childhood, and what happens is the pancreas does not produce insulin or doesn't produce enough insulin to control blood glucose levels. Okay? But we can treat that very simply by insulin pumps, insulin injections, and that will supply insulin for the body to control the blood glucose levels. And as long as people suffering from type 1 diabetes are able to make sure they're monitoring their blood glucose and injecting the insulin when they need it, it's relatively easy to handle as a disease. It's still a severe disease, it still impacts people's lives, but it can be quite easily controlled. So that's type 1 diabetes. The person cannot produce insulin naturally, and they have to take injections to deal with it. In type 2 diabetes, the person is able to produce insulin. However, their body cells don't respond to it. So they're making insulin, but the body just doesn't respond to it. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Okay? So basically, the insulin's there, but not doing anything. That one usually develops in adulthood, and it's linked to a couple of different things. It can be linked with obesity and various other health issues. And for this one, the insulin injections will not work. Because we said the insulin is being made by the body, the cells aren't responding to it. So you can add more insulin all you want, but it won't do anything, because the issue for type 2 diabetes is the cells aren't responding to the insulin, not that there is no insulin. Okay? So type 2 diabetes is mostly controlled by careful changes to the diet to ensure that the body isn't overloaded with glucose at one point, because remember, insulin brings glucose levels down. So by making sure the body doesn't get overloaded with glucose, that can make it okay to manage, but it does have to be managed quite carefully for that. So type 1 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't produce insulin, and therefore it can be treated with insulin injections. In type 2 diabetes, the pancreas does produce insulin, but the cells of the body do not respond to it, so it can only be treated by diet. Okay? So that's just a brief overview of how the homeostasis and negative feedback works for controlling blood glucose levels. Thank you.